Planning a wedding and feeling overwhelmed? Simply Eloped makes it easy. With over 1,400 elopements and vow renewals planned and 37 stunning U.S. destinations, our planners have you covered. Our all-inclusive packages connect you with over 700 top-tier vendors, cutting stress, cost, and complexity. Your love story deserves ease. Let us handle the hard stuff. You just show up and say, I do. Start at simplyeloped.com. Bike lanes continue to be a point of controversy on our city streets. More and more bike lanes are popping up in our neighborhoods, but activists want a citywide network for cyclists, and they want them protected. We get the latest on the tension over bike lanes in Philly with Dave Talone, organizer with Philly Bike Action. It's Monday, December 8th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's another installment of our occasional series that we call Whose Streets? Hey, y'all. Before we get into this conversation about bike lanes in the city, it is the end of the year membership campaign. We are declaring 2026 the year of local. It's our push to help our neighbors like you get more deeply engaged with Philly as a way to build real connection in what feels like sometimes a disconnected and divided world. There are so many people in Philly who want to laugh together, disagree together, root for the same place together, and show up for their neighbors together. If you believe in a more connected, curious, compassionate city, becoming a neighbor is a meaningful way to help build that. Membership helps sustain the show and helps listeners plug into the local conversation in a deeper, more intentional way. Neighbors also get to unlock perks that help you get more from the city that we love. A few months ago, we did a members-only event down at Milk Boy on South Street, and I got to meet some of you, our neighbors, and it was so cool. We got to talk about the neighborhoods that we live in and things that we love and places that, have good memories for us. And that was something special. What I say about becoming a neighbor is that it's cheaper than a cheesesteak. It's just $10 a month or $100 a year, and you can join at membership.citycast.fm/Philly. And if you join today, you are getting the coolest beanie on the block, okay? This is a CityCast Philly beanie. It looks so warm. I saw the mock-up of it. I want one too. And it's going to be yours if you sign up today. All right. I've talked enough. Let's get into today's conversation about bike lanes. So, David, what is your vision for Philly and biking? In an ideal world, you want a network of bike lanes so you could go pretty much anywhere in Philadelphia by bike, right?
Absolutely. Philadelphia is an amazing city for biking. All we're lacking now are the lanes and specifically the protected lanes. We really want it to feel safe for everyone to be out there on their bikes from age 8 to age 80.
And protected bike lanes, how would you describe that? That's like those like concrete barriers or the ones that are kind of flexible?
Yeah, the flex posts. The city defines all of those as protected bike lanes. So it could be flex posts, it could be concrete pills, which we have in some areas. We also have parking protected bike lanes in some areas where the row of parked cars is between the bike lane and the traffic lanes. All of those are considered protected bike lanes, but we really prefer firm concrete infrastructure or parked cars. The flex posts are better than nothing, but we've all seen that cars can drive right through them.
For sure. So those flexible ones I've seen on 33rd Street around like Strawberry Mansion. And then the ones that I like because I'm a driver. And it's the ones on Walnut Street from Center City to West Philly through University City, where it, like you said, it's the sidewalk, then it's the bike lane, then it's cars where that they can park. So why can't we coexist though? Because there's so many fights in the city in certain roadways that, I mean, it's like really just challenging to coexist. Why is that?
Well, I think bike lanes really do help take away from those conflicts, right? I think everyone feels safe when we know that the bikes are going to be in the bike lane and the cars are going to be in the travel lane. But in a lot of parts of the city, we're forced to mix, right? Because we don't have a complete network. We don't have areas where bikers feel protected. And that's where the danger happens, where we end up mixing together. Either bikers are forced out into the road with traffic, which is often high speed, or cars come into the bike lane. And we see that all the time where there isn't protection. Cars, along Spruce and Pine right now, I bet if you were to go out there right now, you would see cars either parked in it or cars driving through the bike lane.
Yeah. I want to get to Pine and Spruce in just a minute. But when you have these conversations down in City Hall, there's a bike lane around the perimeter. That almost didn't happen either. But like when you have these conversations, can there be like just a pause and let's like come and design a bike network for the entire city instead of this like patchwork stuff?
100%. We couldn't be more in agreement with you there. The city has actually put out a document back in 2015, which was high quality bike lane network for the whole city. And it's a great plan. It's an amazing plan. And, they've done all that work, but the implementation is very piecemeal, like you say.
Is it about convincing city council members to like buy into it?
Yeah. So there was a law passed in 2012 where if they're going to put a bike lane in and it replaces any parking or any driving lane, that the city council person has to sign off on it. And so that has politicized it very much. And it's made it difficult to achieve a full network because you're fighting individual battles all the time.
Now, I do want to talk about the bike lane around City Hall. What's the story behind that fight?
The story there is that PennDOT was repaving Penn Square, which is the name of the road that encircles City Hall, and they offered to put in a bike lane at no cost to the city. That is in City Council District 5, which is Jay Young's district. And the city council person didn't seem very enthusiastic about accepting that offer of the bike lane. The city did traffic studies to show that it wouldn't disturb the traffic around City Hall. And then back in June, my organization, Philly Bike Action, we put together a petition and we had 1,400 people that signed the petition asking the council person to introduce the legislation so that PennDOT could go ahead and actually put the bike lane in for free at no cost to the city. And that's what they did. They put the bike lane in. You can see it right now. However, the city council person still hasn't signed legislation making it permanent. So they've installed it currently, and it's going to go in as a pilot program for about 6 months, I believe. And the council person has to introduce legislation before the 6 months is up, or they'll have to take it back out again.
Do you think that's fair, though, just to kind of see how it impacts all of us, like how it impacts people like going in and out of City Hall, how it impacts, the SEPTA buses going around the curve? Like, do you think that's a fair, just to kind of see how it goes, or you want Councilmember Young to kind of move more quickly on this?
We certainly want him to move more quickly on this. We trust the experts at City Hall, the streets department, Otis, that's the organization who puts in the bike lanes in the city. They've done the traffic studies. They've talked with SEPTA. They've actually reached out to the community. They had an open public meeting as well. And they do that for all of their plans. So what we're asking is for the council people to trust the experts. At the same time, I think the city should move forward with more pilots, that we should be trying more things out. We're very, very slow to try things out. And I think we need to experiment a little bit more.
So, David, Unfortunately, we lost a Philadelphian, Harry Fenton. He was killed along Belmont Avenue, which is so busy, lots of cars going fast. And you all are trying to advocate for more bike safety in and around Fairmount Park, which is that area. What has your group done or has been doing to lobby for more safety in this area?
You know, where Harry was killed along Belmont Avenue it's on the high injury network. It's a road that everyone knows is unsafe. And it's also right through the heart of Philadelphia's greatest park, Fairmount Park. And so Philly Bike Action, along with about 8 other groups, put together a petition asking the city and asking PennDOT to slow down Belmont Avenue to make it safe for all road users. Belmont Avenue is not safe to drive on. It's not safe to walk on. It's unsafe for everybody. And so we put out a petition that has 1,800 signatures currently. And then we went out and we did a protest as well, where we actually were timing the speed of drivers. We had radar guns. And what we found was about 96% of drivers were going over the speed limit along Belmont Avenue.
What is the speed limit?
It's 35 miles an hour, which is already high. We've seen that the city has lowered the speed limit along Kelly Drive, but that's pretty ineffectual. It doesn't really do anything because it's not accompanied by infrastructure changes. They're not actually making it more difficult to drive fast along those roads. But the thing is, when you're driving along Belmont Avenue, and I'm acutely familiar with it, I cross Belmont Avenue on my way to work every single day. It's built like a highway, you know. It's built long and straight, and there's very few traffic lights, or they're very spaced out, the traffic lights along Belmont Avenue. Mm-hmm. But it's taking you, like you said, directly into a neighborhood. There's a school right at the end of Parkside and Belmont Avenue.
And Please Touch Museum is right there too.
And you're going into a neighborhood full of houses and full of kids. And it's not safe to drive at those speeds. What we would argue is that if you slow down a little, they've done studies where if you slow down a little, the congestion doesn't actually get worse. It gets more even. The problem what we have is when you have some people driving super fast and then all of a sudden you get to an area where you can't anymore. And that's what happens along Belmont Avenue.
So would the solution be what? More street lights, more of those speed bumps? What's the solution, you think, David?
Specifically along Belmont Avenue, we're asking for a road diet. Belmont Avenue is one lane in each direction for most of its length. It's only through Fairmount Park, really, that it becomes a 4 and 5 lane road. And it's sort of treated as an extension of the highway there. The other thing that we were asking for is roundabouts. Roundabouts have really been proven to cut down on conflicts and cut down on serious crashes where people are killed, like the one they installed down at 20th and Penrose, down by Moyamensing. It's so much safer down there now. And we think an intersection with a roundabout is going to be way safer for everybody.
There's a roundabout in that Parkside area, kind of like in between the grass field and like the residential area and then Please Touch Museum. There's also a roundabout all the way in like Roxborough heading into like Mount Airy. And so, yeah, I do see that as like a solution. All right, let's keep talking about this after the break. I just love holiday traditions with my family. Like when we get into arguments over card games, when the kids beg to open one gift on Christmas Eve, or the karaoke and dance battles in the living room, we have such a good time. But my family lives in different states, so we can't often come together every holiday. So the photos and videos I make sure to take are meaningful and special to us. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it with an Aura frame. Unlimited free photos and video. Just download the Aura app and connect to Wi-Fi. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CityCast at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com. Promo code CityCast. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. The idea of learning a new language can be scary. I felt overwhelmed by that. I bet you have too. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and studies show that up to 90% of people trying to learn a new language give up. 90%. Fortunately, Babbel's built so it's really easy to get started and really easy to stick with it. They understand that people learn differently. So maybe you can dive into a podcast on Babbel when you don't feel like a quick lesson, or you can speak out loud to get practice in, or you can explore courses based on specific topics and even create your own customized review lists, all within the Babbel app. Babbel has made learning a language all about small steps with real wins and progress you can actually track and feel. Bite-sized lessons that fit easily into your daily routine and are also easy to remember. Just 10 minutes a day is enough to start seeing real results. I've been learning Spanish with Babbel, and it's helped when I've traveled in Mexico, and it helps me eavesdrop on my son and my girlfriend when they speak Spanish to try to fool me. No más, mi corazón. However you learn best, by listening, speaking, reading, or writing, Babbel adapts to your style and keeps you motivated with personalized learning plans, real-time feedback, and progress tracking. And right now, here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Trenae Nuri here. I love Philly, and I never feel more connected to it than when I bump into people and they're like, "What are you carrying?" I'm like, "I'm carrying my CityCast Philly Neighbors tote." And then they're like, "CityCast Philly? I listen to that." That feeling of deep connection with the city is why we created the CityCast Philly Neighbors program. Yes, the CityCast Philly Neighbors program is a way to support this podcast and keep it going. But it's also a way of getting more out of the city that you love. When you're a CityCast Philly neighbor, you get an early look at events coming up around town. You get to shout out local nonprofits or businesses that you love, and you get to join us for members-only experiences around town. It's a deeper way of living in Philly and a way of making local your top priority. Join CityCast Philly Neighbors by going to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm, and you'll get a CityCast Philly beanie. I want to talk more about some other controversial bike lane issues. Let's talk about the bike lane along Spring Garden Street. And that's a major roadway east and west, which would take you from Center City and parts of like Northern Liberties and things like that. What's going on with that project?
Thanks for asking. We're really excited about Spring Garden. Right now, Spring Garden has a bike lane on it, and it's had one for years. It's not very well used, mainly because it's not safe. A number of people have been killed along Spring Garden while using the bike lane. It's right in the door zone, which means that parked cars open their doors into the bike lane and can hit cyclists. A friend of mine was hit by a car door right there. And so it's really not very safe. But the city has come up with a great plan. They're going to put in a parking protected bike lane, so it'll be separated. And we're really excited about that. They started designs for that plan in 2009, and I believe the estimated date for completion is 2032 right now. So,
oh my gosh, my youngest is going to be graduating high school by then. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Why does it take so long?
That is a great question that I don't have the answer to.
I mean, literally, it's like, okay, everyone move your car to the left. Paint the street.
They're doing other upgrades along Spring Garden Street for sure, in terms of like stormwater and in terms of putting curb bump outs as well. So it's more of a complete project than just a bike lane. But at the same time, that is a very, very slow pace.
Do you all talk with folks that need ADA accessibility as well? And how are they factored into this conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that Philadelphia should be a city where everyone can get around, whether you're on a bike, whether you're using a mobility device, a wheelchair or an electric wheelchair. And absolutely, we think that having options and having a safe city for everybody is super important. In terms of the bike lane designs, that's something that's very much taken into consideration. We want to make sure that all of the lanes that do get put in can be used by people in mobility devices, or that they have access to the sidewalk easily, through curb cuts as well. So, yeah, that's a serious consideration. The other part is, when we're getting back to Belmont Avenue for a second, is, they have a trail along Belmont Avenue, a side trail, they call it. And the city just doesn't keep it up. It's not safe to walk on. The pavement is cracked and crumbling and has disappeared. And if you're in a wheelchair, you can't do anything. Even if you're pushing a kid in a stroller, it's almost impossible to get through. And I think those considerations are just as important.
All right, let's talk about Pine and Spruce Street in Center City. Probably one of the most controversial of the bike lane issues. After a CHOP doctor was killed biking on this corridor, the city decided to install concrete barriers along the existing bike lanes there. But residents have sued, saying if there are barriers along the bike lanes, they would lose their ability to pull over their cars, right? And to drop groceries off or their packages, things like that. And then the compromise was supposed to be loading zones at every corner. But then the installation was challenged in court. So the loading zones were taken down. And now apparently they are being reinstalled. David, what is the latest with this situation on Pine and Spruce Streets, which runs basically from river to river, Schuylkill to the Delaware?
Yeah, that's a really key corridor, because for cyclists who want to get across the city, that's the safest and easiest way to get across the city from east to west, for sure. And it's probably the most highly trafficked bike lane in the entire city. Dr. Barbara Fritz was killed by a drunk driver in the bike lane in the summer of 2023. And since then, the city has promised to put in concrete protection. They set aside an item in the budget to do that. And to be quite frank, they had a big open house where they invited hundreds, and I think 1,000 people came to this open house to look at the designs. And overall, it was supported by the vast majority of people who came. The vast majority of residents along Spruce and Pine also supported this. Now, there are some residents who don't support it, and they are the ones who have sued. They're the ones who have sued against the loading zones. And so the city went back and they legalized the loading zones. They passed the legislation needed to make the loading zones legal. So right now, we're just waiting for it all to play out in court. We're really hopeful that the court case will be dismissed quickly now that the city has legalized them, and that the city can go ahead with their plans to put in the loading zones first and then to put in the concrete protection.
And some of the other things that have kind of rolled out since this, there's a new law that forbids stopping in bike lanes even for a moment. Is that enough?
Yeah, the no stopping in the bike lane law is a great start. However, if you go out to Spruce or Pine right now, I can guarantee you that you'll find numerous people who are stopped in the bike lane, whether or not there's a law. Part of that is habit, part of that is custom, but also people just know that there aren't going to be police or PPA agents out there to enforce all the time, and that, you can probably get away with it. But when we were talking about conflicts before, that's the sort of conflict where a cyclist, it doesn't matter if the car is stopped there for 30 seconds or for 5 minutes. Either way, it forced the cyclist to go out into traffic. And that's when accidents can happen, right? That's when crashes can happen, because a cyclist is forced to pull out and the other cars aren't necessarily ready for that because they think the cyclist is going to stay in the bike lane. And we really want to avoid any more crashes, any more fatalities along there. So getting the concrete in there is going to really help make it so that the cars can't park in the bike lane.
What about other neighborhoods outside of Center City? Are there efforts to get bike lanes protected in other neighborhoods?
Yeah, absolutely. University City And West Philadelphia is just full of great infrastructure. Like you mentioned earlier, the parking protected lanes along Walnut Street, there's parking protected lanes along Chestnut Street, 48th and 49th, I believe, as well, now have parking protected lanes. So West Philadelphia is really becoming a great place to ride a bike.
Now, like I said before, I'm a driver. And in any given day, I could be in like 5 different neighborhoods. Like I got to go from like Manayunk. I got to then go to University City for doctor's appointments, things like that. And parking is essential in my life as a Philadelphian. So what do you think? Like in order to have more bike lanes, would we lose parking? And like, because I don't really have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And, then I have sports and grocery shopping and all sorts of things, just normal city life stuff. So does it come down to parking or bike lanes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about 99% of our street space is dedicated to cars right now. And so we are trying to even that out. Quite frankly, it's easier in Philadelphia to take away a travel lane than it is to take away a parking lane, rather, in terms of putting a bike lane in. I think where possible, we can certainly do both. I think there's also another model that we've started to see in North Philadelphia where they're putting in slow zones.
Oh, what's that?
Which are basically streets where the cars are going so slow that it's safe to ride and to be out in the street. There is one just up above Girard Avenue, and it's amazing. Riding a bike through there feels great because the traffic is also moving, at 15, 20 miles an hour. They put in the speed bumps, they put in the daylighting on the corners, and I think that's a great compromise that, especially on the narrow streets of Philadelphia, we should use more and more of.
What's your experience like riding around the city? Is it good? Is it bad?
I mean, I'll be honest. I was a driver as well.
What converted you?
I had a car until last year. I wasn't using my car enough, and my car insurance rates were going pretty high at this point living in the city. And so it just made financial sense to me, like it does to a lot of Philadelphians, to ride. So I love to get out and ride with my friends. I do all my shopping. I go to Trader Joe's. I do all this stuff. I go to my gym on my bike. And there are spots where it's really nice. And then there's other spots where it's not so nice. I live right off Girard Avenue, and riding along Girard Avenue is one of the more terrifying experiences you can have on a bike. The Girard Avenue Bridge is pretty bad.
For sure.
But I think all of us just want the same thing. Whether you're in a car, whether you're in a bike, you just want to get about your life. You want to get to work. You want to go see your loved ones. You want to go see a show downtown. We're all just trying to get to where we're trying to get to for our lives, and we want to get there safely. And so I think putting in more of the protected bike lanes, like we talked about, makes it safer for everybody. If you narrow down the streets, you're going to cut down some of the crazy drivers that we see in Philadelphia. And I think that's really important.
Now, David, I do want to push back a little bit.
Sure.
Because I do get nervous as a driver when a cyclist weaves in and out of traffic. That makes me very nervous. Do you think that's a legitimate gripe or a conversation that needs to be more expressed? Like everyone needs to work at this together in order for all of this to be successful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're all in this together for sure. And do I think cyclists can exhibit bad behavior? Of course they can, just like anybody else. I would just say that when a cyclist exhibits bad behavior, like you're talking about, whether it's running a red light or weaving or something like that, they're putting their life at danger more than anyone else. When the motorist or somebody behind the wheel of a car does that, they're putting everyone else's lives in danger. So absolutely, the behaviors can be similar, but I think the outcomes can be very, very different.
All right. So what do we have to do, David? Let's come together. You, bikes and drivers, we're coming together today on CityCast Philly. What do we have to do to get everyone coexisting in a more safe way? Do we need a campaign? Do we need an ad on SEPTA? We need a billboard? What do we got to do?
That's a great question. I wish I had a magic wand that I could just wave over everybody and convince them that, hey, we can all get along. We're all just trying to do the same thing here. You know what I think? When we talked about pilot stuff before, I think we need to try some more stuff out and just see how it goes and actually have genuine conversations with one another about them. We're so afraid and we're so litigious here as a society. I think we just need to try stuff out and talk about it. And if it doesn't work, then we go in a different direction. We try something else out.
Why do you do this work, David? Why do you believe in bike safety, bike lanes in Philadelphia?
So I recently went to the World Day of Remembrance, and that's an event where Families for Safe Streets speaks. And these are people who have lost loved ones in traffic violence in Philadelphia. Harry Fenton's widow was there. Sydney Ozer was there, along with Mindy Mallon, who lost their son, Sam Ozer, who was an 18-year-old kid who was riding home on Father's Day. I don't think anyone should have to go through what those families did. And I know a lot of these people personally. And I knew Harry Fenton. A friend of mine, Andrea Gonzalez, was killed riding around here. So it's something very personal for me. And when you hear those stories, you just know that they're no different from any of us. They're just people who will not get to see their loved ones ever again. And I don't want to have any more of those stories.
David, thank you so much for just chatting with me and having this honest conversation with me on CityCast Philly today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
I got to shout out KR, who's now a CityCast neighbor. What up, Kay? We are sending you that beanie and welcome. I also want to shout out our existing members. Thank you as well for sustaining the show, keeping us going, keeping these conversations, these real conversations, things that you're like, dang, I wish there was a place where, this conversation was happening. It is right here because we live in this city with you. We're not fake. We're not phony. We live in this city. So we know when you're frustrated, when you see trash blowing all over the place, or when there's another pothole on Ridge Ave. We live in this city. We know what's going on, and we want to invite you into these conversations. And I'd love to hear more about how you get to navigate in this city. That's why I love doing the neighborhood shout outs. When you let me know, okay, Trenae, I'm putting you on to something. I just love that exchange of information and knowledge because that's what Philly is all about. You can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Philly. That's all for us today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode about bike lanes in the city, share this episode with someone who rides around in the city. Also, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Philly. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.